Hey, Laurence Holmes here. And if you've been reading the columns over the last few years, you know that Fridays before game days, I usually give you a couple things to watch for in the game. Well, what we decided to do is instead of me writing the blog, just kind of telling you what things I'm going to be looking for. I even got my pad right here so that you know that I'm telling the truth about the 4 things that I have written down. Here's what I think you should be watching for and what I'm going to be watching for Sunday when the Bears take on the Colts. Number 1, how is Brian Urlacher moving? Not how well he plays, but how well he moves. Change of direction, those are big issues. You're talking about someone who hasn't really had any game action in a long time. He started practicing when training camp began and then stopped on July 31st. His first practices since then have been this past week, and he's had to get back in football shape. But the movements of Urlacher and how he moves from play to play, from quarter to quarter, if there's any fatigue that sets in, that's going to be one of the things that's on the top of my list to watch. Hopefully, we'll see him making the type of plays that we're used to seeing him make, but watching how he's able to backpedal, cover the deep third, and how quickly he can get there, and whether or not that puts any strain on that knee, it's on the top of my list of things to watch. Number 2, dealing with Andrew Luck. When we talked with Bears defensive players on Wednesday, one of the things that they mentioned was quarterbacks who are coming into the league for the first time, they have a hard time catching up to the speed. Now, we've seen rookies do very well. Cam Newton did very well last year. Andy Dalton did very well last year. But in that first game, the speed of a regular season NFL game is nothing to sneeze at. And it usually takes a quarter or so, according to the Bears players, for a young quarterback to calm down. So watch to see what the Bears try and do. Ordinarily, you're going to see them in a lot of cover 2 shells. That's what they do. That's how this defense has worked since Lovie Smith has been here. But you could also see them disguise some stuff too. They've been very close to the vest in what they're going to do defensively in the preseason. I think it's interesting that they've shown more blitzing stuff than they did even last year during the regular season, a season in which they blitz more than most people give them credit for. I'm curious to see what type of game they want to play with Andrew Luck, whether they want to drop 7 into coverage and make him try to pick out targets from there, or if they say, let's put some pressure on the kid early on, not just with the front 4, but get the linebackers and maybe the safeties involved and see if he makes some mistakes that way. Number 3 on my list, O-line protection. If there wasn't the injury to Brian Urlacher and you weren't going up against a rookie quarterback, this might be number 1 on the list. This last week has been interesting considering that Mike Tice talked about how they might have to spell Gabe Karimi at some point, that he isn't fully back from his knee procedure that he had earlier in the year and the injury that he got last year in the second game of the season. So that's one side of the ball. You all know what's going on the other side of that line, and that's Jamarcus Webb. Webb last year, Pro Football Focus called him the worst starting left tackle in football, gave up 12 sacks and 30 quarterback hits and a bunch of false starts. So seeing whether or not he's going to finally live up to that potential that the Bears keep telling us that he has, here's another opportunity to do it. What's interesting about it is that the Colts have switched their defenses up. They're now running a 3-4. So you're going to see Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney doing some blitzing. And they're getting used to that. It's a new thing for them. They're usually guys that have had their hands on the ground and have been very effective in 4-3 sets. How long does it take them to get comfortable in a 3-4 set? And what types of things can they do to put pressure on Jamarcus Webb? Will the Bears put a tight end on that side, or will they have a fullback help out with a chip on one of those guys? And will they be able to recognize which guy is going to be blitzing and which guy is going to drop into coverage? Something to keep an eye on. Number 4 for me, the Marshall ratio. Yes, I said ratio. Because if you remember, back in Minnesota, Mike Tice had the Randy ratio. Well, he's got a playmaker now on the outside in Brandon Marshall. Jay Cutler was very quick to say, look, it's possible that he's not going to get a lot of balls this week, mainly because the Colts are expecting him to get a lot of balls. So they may shift the safety over. You could see them playing quarters so that they have a safety over the top of Brandon Marshall or 2 people on that side no matter what. That opens things up for the rest of the guys. And I actually think it opens things up for Matt Forte. With a defense that's changing and trying to get used to being in new spots, I think Matt Forte's contribution to this game could be huge. So it gives them an opportunity to run the ball if they see that safeties are going to be cheating over to Brandon Marshall's side and they can't drop the other safety into the box. Those are the 4 things that I'm looking at. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope this is an easier way to consume it than reading it. We'll do it like this for the rest of the year. If I come up with more stuff, we'll add it on the web. But you'll be able to check out everything that I'm thinking via Twitter. Laurence W. Holmes is where you can find me on game day. I do a lot of tweeting. I'm not going to tweet out the plays because you're watching or listening to the plays. But stuff that you can't see that I might be able to see because I'm there at Soldier Field, I'll let you know about. Thanks for watching. If you got some comments or ideas on different things that we should do with this, feel free to send it our way. Talk to you next week.